Thanks everyone for attending the HubSpot Video Marketing Study Group office hours. What a mouthful, right? This is March 10th. I think this is I don't even know. I've been trying to count and I'm at I keep saying the 12th or 13th, like two or three times now. So who knows? We're doing this every 2 weeks. So come and hang out with us. We appreciate you stopping by. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from in the chat. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, of course, leave them in the chat and we'll answer those at the end. For people coming in just now, we're going to do this format a little differently as well. You do have your video and audio available. So at the end, if you want to turn your camera on and ask a question on camera as well, we're just trying to provide a little bit more clarity and bring a little bit more interaction to these office hours. So you should have that setting to be able to toggle that on and off. If you don't, no worries. You can just put in the chat your question, and we'll get to your question at the end. Hop into a few introductions here. My name's Aaron Oberdick. I'm the video marketing manager here at Nextiny Marketing. So we're running office hours bi-weekly. Make sure you register and hang out with us every 2 weeks. Corey, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, and I am Corey Christian. I'm one of our multimedia marketers here at Nextiny.
Awesome. All right, so before we get into the actual content, just a reminder, we have the HubSpot Video Marketing Study Group. You guys are able to go over to the study group, join this group, and ask really any video-related questions. It's really just a community that's growing really well, and we're getting more and more growth within that community. We're seeing more questions being asked, and this is really just, again, a place to, if you're curious on anything pre-production related, video shooting related, editing related, strategy content worthy, just anything that's surrounding video and the marketing scene that you have a question about, feel free to join the study group, answer questions, ask questions. We're really just providing a community there. So it's growing. Definitely go to the link that Corey just dropped in the chat and join there. I'm moving on. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about the HubSpot Video Bootcamp for marketing, sales, and service. We're going to be reviewing weeks 5 and 6. So we just wrapped the bootcamp up yesterday. So we're going to review kind of the last 2 weeks there and talk a little bit more about what it is and then the next bootcamp. Then we're going to talk just general updates in the video world, what's kind of new, what's coming up, and what's on the horizon. And then study group and bootcamp questions. We always have a few that we like to answer in these office hours. We'll wrap all of it up with that Q&A as mentioned. So jumping into the content here, the first thing we'll talk about is going to be the bootcamp. So the bootcamp for video marketing, sales, and service, what exactly is it? And really, it's just a 6-week course that's aimed to get someone fully comfortable with the two sides of video. So it's going to be the recording process and alleviating any sort of fear on screen while recording. And then the other side is going to be that video strategy and implementation side. So how do you implement a video strategy into your marketing strategy? So in the 6 weeks through the boot camp, ideally we'll walk away with the ability to feel comfortable on camera and excited to record video, as really just how to know how to create the initial pre-production side of a longer term video strategy. So each week as an attendee, you'll be creating videos, email signature video, video voicemail, sales outreach, and we'll educate you on how to better improve that videos through audio, through your video, through your lighting and your framing techniques. And then on the flip side, as I just mentioned, video strategy, you'll be creating a brand affinity strategy. So a video series concept, and then creating a brief, an outline, and an initial script idea. So it's really, again, twofold, and it gives you a lot of valuable information. So it's really good. We'll hop over to week 5, what we talked about just as a general overview. Some video concepts that we talked about, that was generally the theme of week 5, was video concepts and different videos you can start producing for yourself or for your brand. And we really honed in on 5 videos. So a homepage and brand video, a sales FAQ, a product or a demo promo, testimonials, and email signatures. We kind of determined that these 5 types of videos would be a really good to start out with, start crafting them. Of course, a testimonial or an email signature can be very simple to create. It can be all done just on your computer through your webcam. And then, of course, the other ones you can put a little bit more love into it and a little bit more production into it, actually use a camera, get B-roll shots and put it all together. But again, we talked about these 5 concepts and why they're important. Um, to your branding. So if you want to learn a lot more about that, definitely register for the next boot camp, which we'll get to a little bit later. Now, of course, we have those 5 initial concepts, but there are so many more ideas that you can start creating. So I know some of these are a little bit of repetitive sales outreach, but you have internal training videos, you have product videos, explainer videos, onboarding videos is something that's really beneficial. Of course, if you have someone coming new into your department, you want to make sure that you're providing them with as much clarity as possible. Of course, promotional videos, company culture videos, social videos. These are all super easy video concepts that you can start creating now to really just get better engagement overall with your brand. And I know that we just had a 5. Now we just expanded it to 10 videos. So I'm going to blow your mind with 100 videos. As you can see, we have so many different concepts that we've came up with throughout, the months and the years. So definitely take a screenshot of this slide if you're lacking ideas for video, because hopefully with one of these, you'll definitely have an idea. And Corey also just shared in the chat, that's going to be to a blog post that has a little bit of a description to each of these. So if you really want to get some details to how to create these videos and how to get started, go to that page and check it out. It'll be really useful. All right. And then in week 6, the theme was really talking about video analytics and optimization. So we focused in on just some key metrics. We looked at view, looked at play rate, how engagement's performing, click through rate, conversion rate, and feedback. So we kind of just discussed each of these in detail, how you can better them, the things you want to do for them, the things you want to avoid. For example, if you want your play rate to be higher, then, maybe you want to put your video on your homepage front and center, very large. If everyone goes to your webpage at that point, your play rate's going to be pretty high because it's going to be the first thing that they see. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, again, definitely register for the boot camp that we're going to have in Q2, which kind of works into this slide here. So first off, if anyone's here from the boot camp, I just want to say congratulations for graduating. It was an awesome 6-week course. We had a lot of fun, but I've mentioned a couple times, if you want to register for the next boot camp, we do have a Q2 boot camp coming up. That's going to start in late April or early May. We haven't got the exact date down yet, but you can go to the webpage now and actually register for that. So again, Corey just dropped that into the chat. If you guys are curious and you want to learn anything about video related marketing strategy stuff, hop into the boot camp, register for it, and go through it with us. I promise you will see results after the 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Just the quality level of kind of the videos that we were being submitted in the first week versus what we received in that sixth week. Like the amount of improvement that people made is really, I mean, it speaks for itself, right? It
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah, definitely. We'll show some examples, I think, in the next office hours, pending the approval of the individuals. I want to make sure that they're okay. We play their videos, but the overall improvement was amazing. We saw,
Yeah.
we walked through email signature videos where we had that the students record an email signature in week 1, week 2, and then through the education, everything that they're learning and understanding, then record a finalized email signature in week 4 and 5, edit it all together with the knowledge you have, and then look at the results, look at the before and after, and truly, and some incredible results, right, Corey? Like we saw everyone improve on their lighting, their framing. Some people went out and got some microphones and actually bought other cameras, improved their camera quality. So just
And
really
just
amazing stuff.
creativity too, I noticed.
Mhm.
Like those some of those last videos we got were so creative and they had so much kind of, I don't know, they were so different and fun. And like when you take away some of that scary part of things, right? Like when you can remove some of the fear and apprehension of recording it, the creativity comes in and it really showed for a lot of people. And that was, yeah, that was great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. All the aspects improved, right? Like the quality, as you were just saying, but as you just said, also like that fear, the alleviation of the fear. People are nervous to talk to the camera. They're scared to kind of look into the lens. They get kind of that deer in the headlights situation, and they kind of forget what they're talking about. And we saw so many people across the board improve in that regard too, right? Like you saw fear and nervousness in the week 1, and then the ones that weren't so scared, you saw their eyeballs kind of going like this because they're just reading from a script. But of course, both of those sides of people over the 6 week course, they learned how to stop looking at the script and reading it, but rather looking at bullet points and just going off of those bullet points, memorizing it. And again, just speaking to what they know, being the master of their craft, right? So, really, really good stuff. Again, if you're interested, definitely register for the next boot camp. We have a lot of fun. It gets really personal. And after 6 weeks, you'll see improvement. So go register for that. Moving on to the next topic here, we're going to talk a little bit about trending topics in the video world. This is all of around the place, but I do this stuff because it's pretty important. So Descript is an editing platform, and we've used it in the boot camp specifically, but we use it also on a professional level. So at Nextiny Marketing, we use Descript on a lot of our videos that we put together from beginning to end, a lot of social videos. It's really great for transcriptions. So if you're doing long format videos that you want to repurpose that content into a podcast of some nature, Descript is an excellent tool to utilize. And in the boot camp, we had people from all over the world. So this is really interesting and really important because Descript is now has multi-language support, right? So 22 different languages are there. You can see the list there, and then also they have beta. They're working on the beta format for Hindi, so that's really important. I know for a lot of people in India as well. So I just wanted to touch on that because that was a question we got in week 1 of our boot camp. Does it have multi-language support? It did not at the beginning of the boot camp, but now that the boot camp's over, it does.
6 weeks later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even though the people that were a little bit hesitant or reluctant to use Descript, hopefully it opens an avenue and you're able to fully utilize this now. All right. So moving on to the next topic we're going to talk about is Adobe Summit. And this is going to be Adobe's virtual conference that they put on every year. So it's happening next week. It's going to be from March 15th to 17th. And it's a free registration if you want. They do have paid subscriptions if you want to get a little bit better classes or a little bit more one on one sessions, things like that. But they have over 200 workshops for free. So training sessions to go over, definitely check those out. They have a lot of different perspectives in the industry as well. So they have some cool guest speakers. Ryan Reynolds and Kristen Bell will be giving presentations. So that's pretty cool. But it's a great opportunity to just learn how top brands from around the world create loyal customers through exceptional experiences. So find out what Adobe is really just up to with their latest updates, with their different pieces of software and stuff. So it's just a great overall conference to check out, attend a few events, and just gain a little bit of knowledge in the video industry.
And I was surprised kind of looking through the run of the show, a lot of them are very analytics and data driven, and there's a lot of really good content. It's not just software, it's how to implement this in your
Mhm.
workflows, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, you can filter by, your different industries, right? So if you fall into a specific industry and you want to learn more about that, how you can use Adobe products and how to analyze and do promotion within that, you can sort by your specific industry and see all the classes that they're kind of giving specifically to your industry. So really cool. And you can kind of hone in on which classes you want to very easily. All right. And then the last thing we'll talk about video trending topics is going to be new product. This is the Zhiyun Crane M2S. So Zhiyun is pretty well known for their stabilizers and their gimbals. And the Crane 3 has come out pretty recently, but a lot of people said, well, I want a more affordable option that's a little bit more lightweight without all the big bells and whistles, really. And so they came out with the M2S. And really, it's just a new lightweight gimbal from Zhiyun that's a little lighter than the M3. But the really impressive thing is the affordable option, right? It starts at $269 US dollars MSRP. So it's a really affordable gimbal at that price. It's got boosted torque for a higher payload, so you're able to put really any mirrorless camera on there. They advertise the Sony A7 series, the Canon EOS R series, and the Nikon Z6. So you can definitely put a lot of different mirrorless cameras on there. They also have an attachment for smartphones. But the really, really cool thing that Corey and I were talking about was the built-in LED light. So you can see there from the picture, there's a little LED light built into the actual crane. And that's just like, what a cool low level thing to do that alleviates so many issues. Because, of course, when you're trying to get high level detail in a low light scenario, you don't, and you're on a gimbal too, right? Like the whole point more run and gun scenarios. You're trying to
Hmm.
capture the video in a quick scenario. You don't have time to set up, a 3 point lighting setup and everything. So just having that to illuminate on the front side is so key. A really, really cool feature.
Yeah,
So
not having to balance a light on the top or something like that, like integrating it into the actual gimbal allows you to, it's so much simpler at that point. You don't have to worry about powering it externally, you don't have to worry about balancing it, any of that stuff. And the fact that
Mhm.
it's only $270, like I remember when the M10 came out, it was like 10 or $15,000, the original
Yeah,
movie. So to see these things have come down now to 270 bucks,
it's
that's amazing. It's such a cool leap forward in technology in what, less than 10 years or so? Like, that's awesome.
yeah, I would say the movie came out about a decade ago, and on top of that, we'll talk about the movie. It was two-handed, right? Like it was a
Yeah.
whole rig, and now we're down to just like these little grips with your camera on them. So it's really impressive just to see how the technology has evolved for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot more approachable, and it's a lot easier to adapt and to kind of wrap your head around of like, cool, put the camera on it and go. Like, it's
Yeah,
not building this, RC kind of monster and figuring out like, the intricacies of lipo batteries, right? This
yeah,
is this is so much
seriously.
easier.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that just kind of rolls into what we talked about in the boot camp too, is like so many people find video daunting because there's all this expensive equipment and all this very hard technology to process. And how do I piece everything together? But like with 2022 and video, every single piece, every company is really focusing on how do we make it smaller? How do we make it lighter? How do we make it easier to use? And so seeing that commitment kind of across the board is just really nice because of course it makes our lives easier too. So
I never
definitely
thought I would get so excited for a little teeny tiny LED light like that.
yep.
Made my
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. All right. So we'll hop over to the next section now, video bootcamp questions. Of course, we get questions throughout the bootcamp. We get them on the study group as well. So we just like to touch on a few that we always see every 2 weeks. And the first one here, I'm going to let Corey take this one. So you want to take there, Corey?
Sure. Yeah. So one question, not only just from the study group and from boot camps that we see all the time, is how do I get that blurry background, right? Like, what is it that makes that so special looking?
Hmm.
Um, that would be depth of field. So we will explain that in kind of as easy of a way as possible, right? Because this starts to get into some of those really technical aspects of photo and video world that can be really I guess kind of confusing and daunting, but it's pretty simple when you break it down, right? So depth of field refers to how deep your field of focus is, right? How much is in focus from the closest object into the lens to the furthest object from the lens. And this is kind of determined and controlled more or less by three things. The primary one being your aperture, right? So the aperture is that number that you see on the lens, 2.8, f4, right? There's a number of them there on the screen. That's the actual number that refers to how open or close the lenses, and that's derived through a mathematic formula of how big the opening is and the focal length and all that stuff. But the big takeaway is the smaller numbers that you see on there, right? The f1.4, you can see how wide open that lens is. That means it's letting in a lot more light, right? So the more light you get, the more blur you get. Another way you can kind of think of it is the smaller that f number is, right? The smaller your piece of focus is going to be. So if you've got an f1.4, you're going to have a little teeny tiny slice of focus versus like f8 or f16 or 22. They're like these larger numbers. That's going to be a much bigger field of focus. So that's kind of a little bit of an easier trick instead of trying to worry about all the numbers and stuff. The number gets smaller, your depth of field gets smaller. The number gets bigger, your depth of field gets bigger, right?
Yep.
So kind of looking at this from a side slice here, you can kind of see in this image, right? The top one, this is that 1.4. It's a very small slice of focus, right? Versus something where on the bottom you've got like an f8 or an f16, right? It's a very big open depth of field. So you've got everything in focus there. Now, Notice both of these are from the same focal distance as well, right? The same subject distance to the camera itself, right? So that is kind of another thing that influences depth of field. The closer that you get images to the lens, right, the more apparently blurry the background is going to be just because of the distance that you've created between them. So if you want to create that isolation, right, get your subject nice and close to the camera, and that will blur that background even further, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, if you want to pop to that next one, that's a really
Yeah.
good one too, just to kind of see it physically, right? These are all kind of progressively getting stopped down, and that's giving you more and more of that depth of field, right?
Right.
So it's a very kind of easy and visual way to see that. And kind of the last thing, for getting depth of field is the focal length, right? So the longer of a lens, a 200 millimeter, 500 millimeter, right? Um, it will make your apparent angle of view more narrow. So it tends to make the background look a lot blurrier, right?
Mhm.
Because your depth of field is very different at that point. So there's a lot of things that you can kind of do, and there's a lot of tricks and stuff. But the big thing to take away is that depth of field is how much is in focus, and I control that with the aperture, right?
Yep.
So that nice small f number, 3.5, for example, you got a nice blurry background, very small sliver of focus.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, perfect explanation. If you guys do have any questions about that, because I know we've been asked that so many times, and it's always,
Yeah.
how do I make my background blurry? And if so, of course, I filled in the explain depth of field for Corey there. If you guys have any questions about this, technical or if it's very surface level, that's totally okay. Put it in the chat or in the study group. Feel free to ask over there. We're more than happy to answer your questions there as well. So,
And this is a real technical thing, right? Like this is where you start to get into the weeds with photo and video of like,
yeah.
yeah, but now how do I make something do this? It you can get as granular with a lot of these details as possible. And there's even more things that go into this, right? This is kind of just a very
Mhm.
surface level, but like you can pull up the physics, there's numbers, there's equations, like it's crazy how detailed you can get with this, which is
Oh, yeah.
really that's my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, I won't make you dive too far into it, but we'll get to the next question because we only have about 5 minutes left. But I'm going to go over to the next question we had. My video isn't getting a lot of plays, so how can I improve on that? And I mean, there's so many things we could really touch upon, but I just wanted to touch on a few things here, right? So the first thing is going to be, where's your video live, right? Are you talking about a YouTube video? Are you talking about a video on your web page? So this is going to be more specifically to your website. If your video is not getting a lot of plays on your web page or your website, first off, where does it live, right? Does it live on a page that's not really relevant, that's not getting a lot of traffic? Do the analysis on that, look at the statistics and determine what's your highest viewed web page and would that video be beneficial on that page? Can it complement it very well? Can I increase the size of my video embed too? So this is another thing. I see a lot of people putting videos at the bottom of the page, real small in the corner. You don't want to do that if you want to increase your play rate, right? So always make sure that it's kind of front and center. The play button is the most engaging button on the internet. People want to click it when they see it. So definitely put it up front and center with that play button, and people will be more inclined to click it. Also, make sure that the copy is complementing the video is very relevant, right? So this is another thing. If someone sees a video that's not relevant to what they're reading, so let's say that they're reading a blog post and the video is completely irrelevant to what it is, they're not going to watch that, or they might click play, but they're not going to digest the information. They're going to pause it or just move on from the page. So just make sure that your video is complementing what the text on the page. And then, if it's not, maybe just explore that option of moving the video to a different page. But one big thing that you definitely want to avoid, and I put that in the don't section, is don't spam your play button, right? Like your play rate is determined, it gauges it. And so different platforms will gauge it a little bit differently. A play rate, they might determine, okay, the play, the actual play is only determined if you watch up to a certain number of seconds. So let's say you watch 10 seconds, that determines an actual view count, which goes into the play rate percentage. So do not spam it from the same IP, because whatever wherever you've published your video, they'll see that the same IP is playing it over and over. Your play rate is just being boosted by one IP address, and then they'll kind of flag that video or flag that account. So definitely do not do that. You want to avoid that. All right. And then the last question, if you guys have questions about that, I know it wasn't a great explanation. So if you do have questions, feel free to throw that again in the chat, and I'll happy to cover those. But I just want to get going here because we only have a few minutes left. Our last question we had was, a video clip of a boat on the ocean is all I need to finish my project, but I don't live near water. That sounds like a conundrum. Can I purchase someone's video footage to complete my project? So this was a very specific question, but it leads to a really good topic, and that's stock footage. So absolutely, yeah. If you need a boat shot and you do not live near water, you can see right there, there are stock footage options available. There's so many different websites that offer stock footage. There's Shutterstock, Pond5, ArtGrid, VideoHive, Adobe. These all provide but they're not the only ones, right? There's so many more stock footage websites out there. Personally, we use ArtGrid. We don't fully take advantage of stock footage too much because obviously, as a video agency, we go out and try to capture everything locally. But if we can't, we will dive into ArtGrid and find a clip that we might need to pull back out for a client video. So very beneficial if you don't live in a region or you just cannot capture a specific shot that you're really looking for. And then on top of that, you can also look at free audio. So Corey touched on this last week or 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to kind of compound on it, right? Because stock footage also comes with stock audio. So you can kind of complement all of your projects. If you're doing any sort of stock footage, ArtGrid is part of ArtList. And so ArtList is their audio platform that you can utilize, which is screenshot on the right. You can have some sort of subscription service where you can pull all the video clips from ArtGrid, all of your audio files that you want from ArtList, and then put it all in one big subscription. So it's really cool in that regard. And then also, there's a lot of free audio libraries out there like YouTube. There's a screenshot there on the left-hand side. So you can kind of just sort through these libraries and find complementary music for your projects. And again, a lot of them are free. Some of them are paid and just have a lot better, higher quality audio, just better artists in general. So do a little bit of exploring and find what's the best option for you. But we really like Artlist. I know Epidemic Sound option as well. But yeah, if you have any questions about sort of stock footage websites, again, in the study group is a great place to ask that because we'll be able to give you a much more detailed answer in that regard. All right. So that is the last question we had for the presentation. So that wraps it up. I don't see any questions here in the chat, but again, if you guys have them, I sound like a broken record. Head on, head on over to the study group. We're there all the time. We're there every day. So if you ask a question, usually we'll get back to you within a day or two, and we're happy to talk about it more. So definitely join the video marketing study group. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, Jared, thanks so much for coming. We appreciate it. Everyone in here, we really appreciate you just attending these. And I guess I just want to touch on this while I have everyone still here. At the bottom, you should see that you have audio and video capabilities to actually turn those on. What we're trying to do in the future is make these a little bit more interactive. So if you guys have questions, of course, I pull these questions from the study group and from our bootcamp questions. But if you guys always want to ask a question to us live on these as well, we're more than happy to have you turn your camera on, your audio on, ask the question, and we'll answer it right then and there. So definitely, in the future, just think about that as an option. So yeah. All right. It is 4:30, so we'll wrap this up. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you in the next office hours.